find that they're going through a divorce, and how do they deal with that? I have never seen anything like that on TV. I haven't seen anything like that in real life. Have you guys?
I've heard.
Somebody said yes.
Not on
Stand up, sir, and share your story. But really, the two of you are bonded by betrayal. You're bonded by a betrayal.
Yeah.
And so, how did this come about? Did one of you get the script and say, we've got to do this? Did Marta contact you both at the same time? Did one have to convince the other? Lily, start us off.
No, I think we were contacted I'm assuming we were contacted at the same time. and my agent, what?
I don't know.
My agent called me and said, "Are you and Jane looking for something to do together?" And I said,
We hadn't spoken for years.
well, probably, 14, 15 years?
You hadn't spoken in 14, 15 years?
No, we're just.
But you've known each other for a long time, because it goes
Yeah,
back to 9 to 5. You guys have known each other for a long time. Okay, so go ahead.
Right, and so, and I said, well, we are now. They said, are you looking to do something together? And I said, trying to ferret out what he meant, I said, well, we are now.
Jane, what's your version? And when you first heard the premise, heard the premise, guys, what did you think?
And she said, what do you think about working again with Lily? No, I'm just kidding. There was no script. There was the concept.
Yeah, there was
that Marta Kaufman, who was the co-creator of Friends, and Howard co-created, and they pitched it to individually, because the first pitch, you weren't there. But then we came together over a lot of food and pitched it to both of us, and they wrote the script, and that was that. It was, yeah.
And then we went out and showed our faces, to the crowds. And a lot of people wanted to buy it.
And on the surface, I know the producers were telling me backstage that everybody always does this. Like, they'll call them Lily and Frankie or Grace and Jane. They don't call them because we're so used to Lily and Jane, and then I have to keep in my mind, what their characters' names are. But on the surface, they seem to be two different women.
You think?
Yeah. We keep saying that, Jane, you're a Joni Mitchell song waiting to happen. It's the shabby and the chic. One is shabby, one is chic, but it's so fun to watch the two of you. Do you find that there's common ground between the two women? Despite the differences, there's clearly common ground between the two of them.
Well,
other than the betrayal. Other than the betrayal.
Well, yeah, but that's sort of like turns to be a linchpin in a way, but at first, I don't know. I don't know if we even think that way. It's like we live the scripts, and when they tell us that we're friendly, then we get friendly.
the fact is, and I didn't really understand it until we were pretty close to the end of the first season.
Understand what?
That
she thought it was
Grace
kind of like
and
Barbarella, an older
just wait. Just wait. No, Grace could not have ended up living with someone as perfect for what she needed and what she needs as Frankie.
Yeah.
She actually needs Frankie, and vice versa.
Yes.
See.
but less so. I need.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, yeah.
No,
it works.
I
Second season is. What did you see? Was this second
No, you
season?
guys saw the first two
Yeah.
of the second season.
Yeah. Wait till you see the last episode of the second season.
Oh yeah.
Really.
And I think this is interesting. The whole Netflix thing, how everything is released all at one time. I like it because I love that Netflix does the next episode starts in 14, 13, 12, and you're instantly hooked. You say, oh, I'll watch an episode or two, and then before you know it, you're up to episode 6.
It is such a strange experience. When we were here it was just about a year ago when we were here to promote Grace and Frankie for a season. And we left, it started streaming, they don't like to use the word dumped. It was dumped on a Thursday night at midnight. And we flew the next morning to LA, and by the time, at least for me, by the time I got home, I was getting calls and emails from people who'd seeing the whole season.
Now, how does that affect your creative process, knowing that if they want to, people can look at the whole season all at one time?
Oh, I
do.
think it's great.
You do like that?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I lament that then it's done with and we have to wait all that time for the next season. But I love the fact that they can watch it all, and I think it's what you said. We don't have to wrap every episode up.
Yeah.
It just more is alive. It just goes forward and.
But the only problem with that, Lily, is that if you're on episode 4 and your friend is on episode 8 and they start talking about stuff you haven't seen, that's extremely frustrating. But there's no way of getting around
I
that.
I was on an airplane sitting next to this guy, and he recognized me, and I was on the telephone, and I started talking about the show. He got up and ran down the aisle. He was afraid he would hear something that would spoil something for him.
Oh, I love that.
You know, but here you are. I always hate this phrase, women of a certain age. Because I sit here at 61, and now I'm at the age where it goes beyond. You know, before it used to be 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 59. Now I'm 59 and beyond. And I always hate, I think we have to come up with another way to call ourselves.
Just say how old we are.
I know, I don't have that hang up. I honestly don't have that hang up. But so many women do.
Well, then that's why those of us who have some celebrity have to just say it.
Yeah, like.
So I'm 78 and you're She's so used to lying. She can't get it out.
I'm 76.
I thought it was 75.
Somebody can Google.
wish I
But Jane,
were.
I love that at this stage you have no hang-ups about saying your age. So many women, I will talk to them and ask them a question. They go, Gail, that's such an impolite question. Or that's such a personal question to ask
So
somebody.
Frankie.
To ask somebody how old they are. I don't understand it. I love that you can say, okay, I'm 78.
Me too.
Well, let's be fair.
No, go ahead, Lily, go
What is
ahead.
she gonna say?
Lily, there is somebody who, when I first met them, they're 4 years younger than me. Now, when I first met them, actually, they were 4 years older than me. Now, I read in the paper the other day, they are 6 years younger than me. It's somebody famous, too, and I just thought, that's so interesting how that works. So there is a way people do this all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, in this day and age, I don't understand it. We're living longer, we're feeling better, we
Right.
feel good about it. But here you guys are in your 70s, and you're playing uncharted
We're on the
territory.
dark side of 70.
But I love that there are love scenes. You get to play love scenes. You don't see that with women. You don't see that with women at this stage in life.
Well, you notice they didn't give me the love.
Lily, did you want a love scene?
No, but I was supposed to have had one in the last, so maybe it's gonna come in episode 3.
No, you have it off stage. No, it's true.
I have it on stage?
Off stage. They don't see you like they do me.
Is it involve DVO?
What's that mean? What is DVO?
That's how Marta pitched it to me. It's gonna be
What?
DVO, deep
I don't
vaginal
know.
orgasm.
Deep vaginal orgasm.
Oh, yeah. No, we get into it. It's, very good.
Lily, what does that feel like? I would like to know what that is.
Well, I'm gonna find out.
But I'll tell you something about age. When you're looking at it from the outside, it's terrifying. But when you're smack dab in the middle, it's not scary.
Yeah.
In fact, it's better. It's hard to be young. There's so many what
I
ifs.
pity you, so many of you here. I just pity you.
I'm so sorry for all of you who are young. After 50, it gets way better.
After 50, yeah, I agree.
No, it's actually
I
it's been
agree.
proven. Studies have been done.
I
that show.
agree.
Yeah.
Do you, when you look back, do you have a age or a time period where you go, that was the best time of my life? Do you have that as you
No,
sit
there
here?
were no good old days. It's
There were-
right now.
Lily, you feel the same? Where you look back and go, you know, when I was 35, when I was 40, that
I
was
remember when
really
I was
good.
75. It was a great time, wasn't it?
No, I bet you can look back with a lot of joy in some periods of your life. I mean,
I can, but I know
Laugh
it's
at
not
this.
real. It's done with.
okay, no, I got it, yeah, that's true.
No, laughing was
Laughing
great. You don't
was-
look back
yeah.
at laughing?
Oh, I
and go,
look
"That was
at
fun." Yeah.
so many different. If I only
Give me one. Give me one.
Well, Laughing was big because I got famous, you know, and you're just, and Ernestine was such a big monster. And you know, so I was just so dumbstruck that that character would be so popular, and then other things go on, and then you know, here's what I find about time as time passes. You know, I was watching you all doing actresses on Hollywood Reporter on the plane coming in, and Charlotte Rampling was kind of in repose most of the time. Did you notice?
Yeah, well, what's your point?
Well, I find that I'm sort of taking that tack.
You think so? Why are you kidding? We have to talk.
I'm finding that I get more, you know, I hear all you younger actresses were talking and carrying on, and some of them were quite young, you know.
Yeah, like
Brie Larson is like
yes.
21 or something,
Right.
25 or, anyway, they're,
Saoirse Ronan is 21.
yeah, she's 21, right, but she wasn't there.
Oh,
She
that was a
wasn't.
different time.
Yeah, that's right. But no, I mean, like today we were at lunch at Tribeca, and I sat next to a famous filmmaker, very famous.
J.J. Abrams, yeah.
I'm leaving, that's it. You'll be doing that to me next. Revealing
But what were you gonna say?
I-
Sitting
I-
next to
I was
JJ.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting
And
next to what?
he told me a story about an old Twilight Zone, and it was called Walking Distance. And because Ron Howard was sitting at the table with us, and Ron Howard had been in Walking Distance when he was like 5 or 6 years old.
Yes.
And I was just moved to tears. He told the story in such a very shorthand way, and it was so compelling and so wrenching that I just was, you know, it just totally captivated me. And I find, but of course I've always been deep that way.
No, Jane said
was
something
there,
Lily.
and I'm thinking as time goes, because you're so aware of time.
Yeah.
You know, just when you're 30 or even 40 or whatever, you're aware of. I remember at the moment I was in Las Vegas, I went to see Joan Rivers, and I was 30, and or 29, I hadn't even aired on Laugh-In yet, and I was in a ladies' room, you know, and there were women in there from Vegas, kind of Vegas types, gamblers and all done up and everything. And I heard one of the women say, who's gonna remember it 100 years from now? And I just flashed for a minute on the fact that 20 years ago I had been 10 years old, and 20 years from then I was gonna be 50 years old. And it was just very striking to me. But as I've gotten older, and the time is definitely winnowing out.
Yes.
I'm certainly not so terrified of it or stricken by it. And I find things that are about life and the loss of, and I looked at Ron Howard, he's a grown man, he's had 3 careers really, as Opie, as a little boy, and then he was a teenager, and then he became a filmmaker.
And he said
You know
what he
what I
hates
found
most
out?
of all, he hates casting guys. Ron Howard said he finds the cast. Didn't you find that interesting?
Fascinating.
He thought he thinks the casting process is so hard because he knows what it's like when you come in and give your soul and then you don't get it.
Yeah.
And he said, I just don't want to be in that. I don't want to do that to anybody. I don't want to quash anybody's dreams. But Jane, you said something really interesting at the table.
But let me just tell you something that I found out.
Okay,
Because
go
I
ahead.
was sitting with him too. I was
Yes.
at the table.
I didn't
was there.
I didn't see any tears
Here's
in
the
your
thing.
eyes.
No, that's what I'm talking about, because it didn't touch me that way. But you see, I learned so much from you. I'm going to go back and reflect on it and see what I missed. But what I did hear, which I thought was fascinating, was, you know, my dad starred in Mr. Roberts. He played it on Broadway for 4 years, never missed one performance. And there was one female in the show, and she was pregnant with Ron Howard.
Oh!
You didn't hear that?
No!